Indeed, we saw the rand finding its feet and actually strengthening. I think there are a few factors that are playing in the rand's favor. Late last week, we saw in the US the final agreement with regards to the lifting of the debt ceiling. That provided a lot of relief. And as a result, we saw the dollar starting to weaken against its major trading partners. And then also in the US, the employment numbers that came out were still very strong, which led the market to believe that perhaps going forward, the rate cuts won't be as sort of pronounced as what we have seen over the last few months, from the US. Again, that also undermining the dollar and benefiting other currencies, including the rand. But I think domestically, the last 2 days or so, other factors have come through. One is, I guess, the debate as to whether to hold the BRICS summit in August, either online or move it to China. You'll recall that there is that debate as to whether South Africa needs to arrest Mr. Putin should he lay his foot in SA. So if indeed we are able to host the summit elsewhere, I think that will take away some of the anxieties as to what will happen on the geopolitical side. And I think also the last factor is that the ESCOM has come out and suspended, even though it's temporarily, but they've suspended load shedding during the day to enable businesses and I guess everyone else to carry on with their business with their daily lives. I think that is also helping, given I guess it just means that the risk of further downside from load shedding, hopefully how those have been mitigated. And I think just to add also, we saw the GDP numbers coming out for Q1 yesterday, which were a lot better than expected. So yes, despite the very heavy load shedding that we've seen over the last few months, but at least for the first quarter of this year, there is still some growth. So hopefully going forward, we can build on that growth. And I think all those factors are actually benefiting the rand, and that it explains where it is currently. I think we all welcome a strong rand, even if it may be short-lived, largely because it means that our Reserve Bank or the MPC, perhaps they will find a little bit of gap and pause in terms of rate hikes, which affects the consumers across the board. Our view is we expect the rand to strengthen. However, we won't go back to the levels that we've seen earlier this year, around 17 or so, largely because the underlying issues are still pretty much part of us, especially domestically. So load shedding, even though it has been suspended on a daily basis in terms of the windows, it is still a challenge, and we know that we do not have a credible solution as yet, to where we can say hand to heart load shedding is a thing of the past. And then the geopolitics. Just look at Gauteng now. It would appear that the mayor who's only in for a couple of days, there may be another vote of no confidence. And we all know that Gauteng is the largest metro in the country, contributing up to 40% of GDP. So the political instability, unfortunately, also plays out and weakens the rand going forward.